Welcome, everyone, to the PMCO UK Spring Split Finals 2021. My name is Highland Flu, joined by Professor Tarzan on your screens. And of course, welcome to our sponsor as well, Xiaomi Innovation for Everyone. But this is my pal because John here, John Allen, told me that we needed some floofiness, some floofy action going on. So I brung my... Well, not mine, but it is a floofy teddy. So we've got a floofy teddy. There he goes. He's been murdered away. But I mean, anyways, we've seen how he is. How are you, Tarzan?
I am doing great. Like with that little bit as well from you, just can't complain. Adding so much spice, I should say, just like cuteness to it as well. You know, I thought you were already a package. You're just making it hard for me to catch up now.
See? There he is.
Brilliant.
He's alive. He's alive. Don't worry, guys. anyways, I digress. Of course, it is day number 2 of the UK Spring Split Finals, and we have another 4 epic games to go. But of course, let's take a look at the juicy looking points that these teams can be picking up through these games. Starting off, of course, with a chicken dinner. We all know it, 15 points going to the winners of each game, towards, of course, 0 points for the final 4 place teams, and that juicy 1 kill point going to every kill that these teams can pick up. And I tell you something, Tarzan, the points that these teams are picking up are going to heavily rely, and we've already seen it in day number 1, on these kill points.
For sure. And that is just how the point system changed how some of these teams play, right? And that difference in the past was 6 points between the first and second place. And now that has changed completely. And teams really want to pick up more of that kill points, maybe in the mid game based on how they position. And look at that, like a 5-point difference between the first and third place. That is less than what we've got in the past between the first and second place. And that really explains how these teams want to play differently. And we've seen some of those teams changing up the tactic a little bit, putting so much emphasis in farming kills. And that really made up in the end when they don't have a positional advantage given by the circle.
Right. And of course, these teams going to be fighting for those zones like we saw in yesterday's games. And talking about those zones and talking about placement points, we can see in terms of placement points, 777 taking up the strongest in placements overall, but the team behind them, RESQ here, the most kill points, taking up 32 in total. And 32 points, that's an average of 8 kills per game. That is 2 squads in total, every single game, Tarzan.
That's just crazy. Like, RESQ was your pick, right? Your pick of the winner for this PMCO UK, and I can see why. The style that they play, the amount of control that they try to gain wherever they want to take on the map has been great, like immense, and we can see the potential of this team to even go further. And my pick, though, TSC Legends, a team that has shown a lot of potential, particularly in that group stage. They were the first seed coming into our finals, and they have not had the best game or best day yesterday, but like, do bear in mind that point separation from the 3rd place to the 9th place only 11 points there, so they just need one decent game, I should say, to grab all those points back. And 777 Esports kind of just blew up yesterday. They're a team that we didn't give enough credit, and they didn't give enough credit for certain reasons, but they are maybe proving us wrong from how they played in that day 1.
Yeah, of course, 777, one of the teams that picked up a chicken dinner here. In fact, make it 2, of course, because they not only got one in their Sanhok game earlier on in match number 2 with their strong position over, which is probably one of the trickiest, if not the trickiest zone we've seen in the group stage for Sanhok so far, compared to the amount of teams. That scoreboard in terms of the kill board, not even dying for 3 solid minutes, completely popping off. And even in the last game, popping off, talking about Gunner Gaming with the beautiful 1 versus 4, showing us how to really throw those grenades into the enemies in front of you. they are one of the strongest teams going towards them. But on the opposite end, I do want to talk about the side of RENGERS, BeMyLOOT. Two of these teams, which were very strong in the group stage, had realistically one of the top 10 finishes, BeMyLOOT even second finishing in the group stage, still to come out in terms of points.
I mean, both of these teams shown a lot of confidence as well through the interviews, etc. And what they had yesterday, if they can turn that into 1 or 2 focus points and just nail that down, we see how they could do it. And that is also BeMyLOOT telling us, right, after that day one, they said, it's fine, we're just going to focus on not losing players early. And they made that count, and that's how they had that very, very good comeback in the group stage. And we are here to maybe witness them doing that again. And another team that we want to mention is Gaijin Seraphim. We saw some of this rotation coming through that seems to demonstrate their studying of the enemy teams, right? Trying to rotate in a different way to establish particular choke spots, and I just want to see more of that from them. Obviously, they're a strong fragging team, just need to grab a bit more of those placement points as we see them at that 5th position, and but not enough placement points compared to the teams just above and below them. And obviously, we will have 4 games again, like all the days before, with the same match order. We will have Erangel for our match 1, going on to Sanhok for game 2, Miramar for game 3, and back onto the good old Erangel for the last game.
Yeah, of course, 2 Erangel maps have been detrimental to how these teams have been picking up their points. But in terms of Erangel particularly, it has been one of the maps going from game number 1 through to game number 4, 2 very different styles. In game number 1 yesterday, we much saw the snake style of HardShift picking up their winner chicken dinner in that first match, being able to snake their way to victory. But in the final match, it was all about that fragging and all about that hilltop going towards the center of the zone later on. TSC Legends almost made it happen. They had the strong position, but couldn't quite close it off. It because even RESQ with their double-digit kills in the last game couldn't close it off. It was that solo, that amazing plays that we talked about from Gunner Gaming 777. If you haven't, go and see it after this stream, though, because the action in the present is going to be happening tonight, and that is what we need to focus on. These teams going into tonight's games, Tarzan. And I think the onus, as we said, is in some of these teams going off the bottom side of the leaderboard, even particularly Gaijin Seraphim, one of the top teams, and one of the favorite teams here going into the tournament, in the finals specifically, just not able to really have that synergy to make it work to go into these final areas.
Still a lot for them to prove, though. And it's too soon to say anything. We've all seen how the second day of gameplay for these teams really changed things up. We called them the day 2 of bounce back, right? And it's just, I want to see those, by the way. I want to see teams coming back stronger. And because that is such an important trait and ability, like from a team, for them to not lose the hope and just fix things and make it better. And same for the teams on top. Of course, leaderboards are not like crazy with a huge point sponge situation, but we also seen the missteps from teams who have been like top performing, because you know what? There's no place for them to be complacent in this tournament.
Yeah, and I think in terms of course, looking towards the top side, there is a lot of pressure, right? Particularly on 777, first position. They got 2 wins under their belt already. And these sort of teams looking for wins, these teams like Royal Knights, who we talked to earlier, and they said, well, okay, we're looking actually for a plethora of wins. We're looking to try and make it into these zones. We're looking for at least a trio, make it 3 chicken dinners, they said, before they make it to the PMPL. Pretty confident words coming out of them, but still one of the teams to show up here. And I think it is going to be up to these teams, up to the bounce back in terms of who can dethrone the likes of 777, who can dethrone RESQ and the rest of these teams on top.
And we were also looking at how teams could maybe hunt a particular team down. We've been repeating the same theme, right, for a few days now, even through group stages in the likes of a team like Lakonostra MVP. That just goes to Lepovka regardless. We haven't seen them maybe go into there, like if the plane path's not going over the eastern side. But I'm just gonna assume and guess that we will have a Western playing path, and I want to see what they're going to do. And because being predictable can be really dangerous in this game, and same rotation paths, like I mean, in the past playing the game as well, like I've got targeted, like my team, by doing the same things over and over again, and I can see how easy it is for someone to do it if they just put that little bit of effort in. So this is the time, and I really, really want to see it.
Yeah, we saw even yesterday, they really had the pressure on and being hot drops and being the targets of some other teams in yesterday's matches. And I think even the likes of the onus comes on to TSC Legends as well. Another team that refuses to move. And I think that is a general statement for Erangel, right? These teams, very respectful, going through these first two matches, dropping in the same locations. And I think that definitely does put a lot of opportunity for teams to really target the likes of 777, target the likes of Lakonostra MVP, who are also on the top of that leaderboard to keep in mind, even HardShift to an extent. And I think even if teams want to change up their drop path, then you go to maybe the southwestern side, which isn't so contested or congested by teams, particularly around that quarry and Primorsk area. I think that is where the openings could really be for some safe but different drops and some opportunities for these teams. But of course, we do have to keep in mind that we are going to be ready up onto the first match, up onto the green hills of Erangel. As you can see here, we have the playing path jumping over on our screens.
And I would just predict, based on that pictorial memory of myself as well, going from Hospital to Yasnaya. And I think we've seen this playing path for several times now. I think both games yesterday were about the same, right? And that is also a playing path that is really, really kind to many of these teams, because we've got teams who love going to Georgiapol, love going to school in Rosal area, and same for mentioned Lipovka. And I think we won't get our answer today, Highland Wolf. I think that will still be a Lipovka drop coming from Lakonostra MVP. And same for Most Wanted as well. We mentioned how they like going to Kameshki Stelba area and want to see an adaptation from them, maybe grabbing Yasnaya, being empty right now in this final stage of PMCO UK, and just need to see whether they made that adaptation now.
Yeah, I don't doubt it one bit. But what I do like in terms of adaptation, going straight from the get-go here, is 777. They dropped over in that Yasnaya area in game number 4 yesterday, and then now splitting it to the opposite end of the map, going towards, as we mentioned, that southwest side of Gatka, which is that more open area. Only, of course, Tes Team, the team to be dropping over on that southwest portion of Erangel. But as we do mention, that teams onto the east side, Most Wanted even over to Kameshki, going towards the north side. HardShift going to be dropping over to the signature area of Severny. But what it does now have in store for us is this phase 1 zone here, Tarzan. It goes towards the western side.
Oh, you know what? I feel like this is exactly what we've got yesterday when it comes to playing path, circle, and drop location. So we may get some repeat of the history there, but also actually want to see some change coming from these teams, right? And Sons of Odin, we mentioned this team, their preference of going towards South Georgiapol has now changed to Pochinki, now that in finals no one's contesting that. The problem is, if the circle continues to go to a position like Pochinki, does their map knowledge of the city allow themselves enough, edge to maybe outplay other teams? But that is a very, very important theme, I think, coming into tonight as well, because that past day, right, that day 1 finals, we've seen some of those circle finishes going over to the drop spots of some of these teams, but they actually look like they don't know how to play it. So they need to study the map and that drop location, not just for the purpose of securing early game, but what if we get that circle? That is the textbook circle bless, right? Like that, for the circle ending at where you drop, but they need to be able to hold it down, and that is something that we need to see.
They do need to be able to hold it down indeed, and I think that is going to be the question and really the potential problem for some of these teams. not only holding inside the zone, but also with teams moving inside the zone as well. There is still many teams going to be outside, and particularly on the edge here, we're talking about HardShift coming off of a strong day number one, a team that finished the group stage in 15th position, joint 15th, 16th with TES Team, who also had a strong showing in day number one. Now showing us that actually they can hang with the big boys. They can actually hang with the likes of LN MVP. They can hang with RESQ. They can hang with the likes of TSC Legends, and in fact surpass them on this leaderboard. Another team though that did do well in that leaderboard, it needs to have a good day here, albeit be knocked potentially from those top three spots permanently without enough games to get RAB points back up, is RENGERS.
I mean, when RENGERS, we mentioned how they had one of the biggest wins in the group stage, right? They were fragging like crazy in that Miramar game, but consistency is so key. I mean, being in that bottom of the table, literally 16th place right now, the fact that they are dropping very close to Gaijin Seraphim around North Georgia Port, I want them to show a bit more aggression, right? And they can maybe just use that predictability coming from Gaijin and make it their advantage, right? And then RENGERS can maybe get some early kills and use that momentum to make their night better. And that is something that they can use, but seems like, you know what, that congestion around Georgia Port is still there, but teams just don't want to do anything about it.
It is going to be potentially the congestion, though. Although it will be around Georgia Pole, I think coming down towards the Gatka Fields area, around coming off the Everest, that's where it's going to be really dangerous for these teams, especially if it once again centers around the Gatka area in this UK competition. We've seen once before around Gatka how congested it can already start to become, and particularly note that in yesterday's games as well here, Tarzan, all 16 teams, for the most part, if not 15 teams, were surviving to the point that you had the Phase 5, even sometimes Phase 6 zone, before we really started to see players and start to see teams drop out of the games.
Yeah, I think knowing how to play conservatively is an important area of skill, I should say. And like I said yesterday, I would like to believe that as a result of studying your enemy's play. But I think I may have changed my mind right now. I think they are just a little bit scared to take those actions, just too scared to lose players early. But you know what? Seraphim has a different idea, and this is what I like. Before, I think the game yesterday, they opted in for that rotation through the bridge towards maybe an Everest area earlier, but now they are doing something different. So, you know what? I like it. I really, really like it.
I do like it indeed. And I like the aggression coming out from this team because Gaijin, they need to pick up these points on the bottom side of the leaderboard. And also, I love that they're also now targeting the side of RENGERS in their home drop spot, a team that is also even lower down before them. And I think that really speaks to me about teams that we talked about in the intro, picking off enemies in their home, in their comfort spots, and then changing the game and the dynamic of the way these teams are going to be playing. They pick up those points to get back into the game later. You see RENGERS, just as the loot falls, Lord has made Gaijin's position known, but they do it in style. They pick up the first kill. The RENGERS, they now have to have that question in their head of, how the heck are we going to get out of this compound?
I'm saying for Seraphim, they've got their kill, and now their position is known. So it's about how they can adapt from this point onward. Not to peek too far is also important. Kosti getting punished for peeking a little bit too far, not knowing the limits of that ridge line. But you know what? I think that might be just the first kill ever that we've seen from a team really using the knowledge of the enemy's position to get an edge.
Yeah, I'm glad that we finally get to see it in the finals, albeit it has been a long wait for it, but we have it nonetheless. And look at Prada's position on the flank side as well, actually mitigating the flank rotation from RENGERS and cutting off one side of her escape. And that's actually going to bottleneck them to be rotating through the buildings towards actually the opposite end of Georgia Pole and rotate out in only one direction, albeit they get knocked apart by Prada. But Prada, you see his position has been spotted by Malik, and unfortunately, that gives a lot of the game away for Gaijin, because now he no longer has that surprise factor when RENGERS choose to rotate back out, and it's not going to be as advantageous a position as it was before.
Oh, and look at that kill feed. That is finally happening. That is TSC making it work. This is what we wanted to see. Of course, it's not on that eastern side anymore, but TSC is making it work. They have killed one of the Lakonostra MVP. I mean, we've seen them clashing on the eastern side before, but once again, I would love to believe that they have been planning for this and they are getting rewarded, and that is such a sweet opening kill.
They do pick up one. They're looking to try pick up two, but it might just be onto K2, which will be the confirmed knock, as he goes down particularly low, but keeps himself alive for now. Bilal trying to stop the escape, but it's already come through. K2 will also be knocked by Sons of Odin, overlooking these two teams, and now they are in a dangerous position themselves. Lakonostra escape on out of there. You see Sons of Odin driving in.
And Sons of Odin is trying to play this more aggressive. We know this team has not been playing together for so long, but with that days and intensity of training, they can maybe make this work. And I think it's a little bit of a misstep from TSC Legends here, right? They know from scrims, from day one as well, that Sons of Odin is in Pachinki, and they are just not really using enough of that knowledge. And now Bacchus is here to maybe farm this. Another knock goes through, and those vehicles will be very hard for TSC Legends to protect.
Yeah, you even see here going through the smoke, they're going to maybe look to knock down these vehicles as well. But you also see the side of Royal Knights even rotating through in the backside. Another team, of course, from that eastern side, rotating into phase number one over in the west. As phase two has hit now our game number one. You see it has shifted over to that northern side, actually going to favor teams like HardShift, overlooking, of course, the compound of Roshok. And they actually have one of the strongest positions. They can even rotate towards that bridge over to the south of the shooting range and block off teams rotating out of Georgia Paul if they choose as well.
And that compound held by HardShift so strong. With that squat house and 3-stack, they have so much information on that coastline looking the south side. Also a lot of 360 information around all that compound, right? But it's going to be a bit of a hard one if the circle keeps going there, because teams would know that a team is holding that spot and they want to take it away. So when you're facing more than one team trying to contest that is how it can get really hard for them to hold it down. And meanwhile, Seraphim's still in here trying to get more. And I mean, there's so many rotation paths. There are multiple choke spots around or along the rotation paths away from North Georgia. And I want to see more of that, because that's turning into a little bit of a stalemate.
But it won't be so much of a stalemate here for Ki1 versus TSC. Of course, Soka has already been knocked down, but Bujo, equally on the opposite end, has been knocked, having a hard time getting in, because that was a beautiful nade through the window, and Chiquita will also fall. That's a double for now the side of Ki1. But what I'm surprised is they actually can't engage here, because they're positioned along that roadside. It means teams are coming in through past Watertown across that bridge. It makes it very tricky. Even BeMyLOOT on the outskirts there to really make some work happen and cross into the shed. But albeit the grenades are the way they're doing it, they chuck another one in. Chiquita will be knocked, Bilal very low. That with a double knock, and 3 go down. And now Bujo, the only one alive. They drop out like Spider-Man from the building, and they're looking to try assassinate them, put them in their web, put them in their pockets. That's 4 clean kills going the way of Ki1.
I think that is just really hard to watch. For TSC Legends, right, the team that has so much experience, to end up in this situation is just really rough. They need to know for this type of circle that this compound on the other side, right, of Watertown is so strong. It has so much potential to choke rotations through that bridge. And for TSC Legends to just drive past there, or maybe just crash it without more preparation, is just a little bit disappointing. But we will have that circle shift back onto the southern side with the middle around Headshot Hill. So that is going to be a very interesting one. We saw Vendetta using those Watertown high elevation, especially with that one satellite tower, to make some work done. And they might be there to repeat that, but that circle shift, right, also means a team like HardShift need to now find a way to come back onto that main island, and it's just going to be pretty rough. And meanwhile, RENGERS still stuck around North Georgia Pool trying to fight against Gaijin Seraphim. They need to time it well, and maybe can get those kills along that rotation route, but they need to figure out what they want to do and not be too, tunnel vision on either of their plans.
Yeah, of course, it is already now phase 3 going to be shrinking in. And now is the time, as you see, Gaijin to rotate out. They've got their 1 kill and they've still got all players alive. That will mean that they take the advantage. You see also RESQ picking 1 down as well. On top of Royal Knights, losing a couple to Lakonostra MVP inside the zone. Will be another as Starboy will fall around that ruins area. Lakonostra MVP holding on for now as Cable rotates in the outskirts. But overlooking them all, though, you do have even more teams with Wild coming in.
There's so many compounds to choose from, Highland Wolf. Like for this circle, you can either play Edge and you have ridges and compounds for sure, but you can also take a more center bit only if you know the particular ridges that are the most OP. And meanwhile, we have 777 Esports in a little bit of a sticky situation against another very, very strong squad. 777 Esports at the top of the table now, but with that double knock on them from RESQ, it may be a little bit harder.
You see the double knocks go in, and there's a grenade city, baby, because they will now be 777 looking to try and make something happen with the smoke, but Coyote will be the only one falling down. And now with 3 out, Gunner Gaming, can you pull off the 1 versus 4 against RESQ again? It's going to be your time to shine, but maybe not. They find 1 knock. Can they find a second? He's going down low. Reloads with the Uzi in a minute. Has 35 clips now in his packet. But will the Uzi be able to snipe down another 3 members? It's going to be tricky. You see only 1 now remaining with Tick on the outskirts. Looking to try and make that knock, but he can't find it. And Tick, the champion for his team, they won't allow the 1 versus 4 to happen again. And they pick up 4 kills themselves.
The sweet revenge, but you know what? Gunner Gaming was so close to taking that one as well. Only if he had that, confidence to finish that heal, he might be able to take it.
That he would have had if he took a 1 versus 4 again.
Like, it would have completely left RESQ in shambles, and we are going to get that finish, going to Watertown. Something new finally, and I do love it. I like it so much, with especially some parts of Headshot Hills in play as well. So those skill when it comes to using ridge lines to its maximum, but not too aggressively, should be very, very, very important. And we get to see how teams demonstrate that skill. It's also about the timing of those rotations, right? If you want to go in first, and then you have multiple teams hanging on the edge trying to shoot you down, and but if you can scout just about enough and come in at the right time, maybe they get a little bit more. But look at TES team here, one of those teams coming in first, now getting punished for going in with a little bit less patience than we want.
And I think this is a really tricky rotation of zone because these teams rotating through ruins, the ridge lines make it very hard to make a clean drive-by through. And there's so many teams already inside. Even Danny now picking 1 onto Wild. Maybe going to make it 2, but even their position is spotted out by TES team. And they will also now have to be careful, dip back down and be a bit more patient in their thirst for kills. As TES on the opposite end of that ridge line, looking still with their 1 vehicle to make their rotation out, pass through that smoke, but they are safe for now. They've got a position on the edge of zone. HardShift also rotating in from the south. From that north side, it's interesting to see they made that 180 rotation through his spot, and unfortunately gets found out. And we talked about how tricky it is to rotate through. They've lost now 1 member, and Lotus can't move any further.
I mean, that would be okay for now, right? Like, HardShift should use that ball, and it's a decent spot, right? Good ridge line can protect the cars from most of the angles other than the south side, and they should just stick with that. The scout has paid the price, and that should be Lotus just using that for now, and you can see the strengths of coming in early. TS team takes out 2 from the side of Royal Knights.
But with now phase 4 even closing in, it's going to crush more teams even together. We've not had the stalemate of kills. It is obviously now 12 teams only remaining. Here's RESQ make their assault into zone 2. From south going to drive over Lotus, but maybe not so easily, as they will lose 1 member. Lotus will pick up a second, but TES team see it all happening in front of their eyes, but they can't pick up the kills because in front of them even Uncles are picking over DR. Throws a grenade in to try finish him off, lands in his face, will bounce over the car though, and that won't be cooked right, but it doesn't matter because RESQ come in for that first. They come in with the second two members, will pick up that kill, take the ridge line for himself, but TS, all the meanwhile, with their smokes coming in even closer.
And this is the test of how to scout, right? Like, you need to find a position that you can scout first and then maybe take those spots. If not, we'll end up in this type of clash. Just teams coming in one after the other, and that is RESQ out from that dip.
That was a beautiful aerial drive straight over the head and beheading RESQ from this game, but Shoxes will be blowing up in return. Now a second one goes in, blows up the car, and Albert alongside it. Insania, the only one in the smoke, they chuck another one in to try find the first. They will get a clean 2 kills over for TES. The grenades, they're taking lessons from Gunner Gaming from yesterday's games. Another one goes in, but it goes over Insania. TES, they're holding on to their position, but they need to move. Look at where that zone has gone, over to Sanhok and over to the side of BeMyLOOT and Ki1.
Really, really tough circle here. They need to know where all the enemies are, so all those gunshots that happened in the past 2 or 3 minutes are very, very important for them to find the good rotation path to avoid certain choke spots, as well as timing it right. I think most teams should go for that wide rotation, maybe going back to close to that blue zone and find a way in. But the problem is, if that is a very open rotation path, that makes it really, really tricky. I mean, essentially, all the teams except 2 were outside of the circle with that blue zone coming in 1 second and now, and that's just going to be even crazier. Uncles have sent it all the way now, got a bit of an entry spot on the south side with some elevation as well, so this is good news for them.
Uncles, the quiet team here in match number 1, but they're trying to make it work, is most wanted. Feel the pain of Uncles as they assault their way onto that south side. They will be able to smoke themselves up. For now, is also HardShift will fall out of the game in 12th position. Unfortunate, but that is how the dice will roll for them in this first match. TES now making their rotation inside as Ali in front, and the rest will be able to make it. But Ali, the first one through, is that sacrificial lamb and will be caught out. Uncles holding on strong to that tree line right now. The smoke set a little bit here to protect him on that dip.
Really, really tough circle right now, and most wanted can really farm from that high ground if they know the limits of that. Multiple teams still trying to come in, and sometimes they're just trying to split into some rotation path, trying to split the bet so they don't lose all those players. And I mean, I don't disagree with that. With this type of circle, very hard, but look at Uncles with the 2-1-1 split, trying to control multiple areas, getting the hills as well as controlling through the soft covers from the smokes. They are very aggressive with this play.
Uncles grab the hills inside the zone, whereas most wanted need to come into the zone, but DR won't be able to move into the zone any further because Vendetta will snipe that one up. Insania also coming in with a drive-by. We'll have to pause for now as Vendetta are directly ahead of him, just to the edge of that water town. You see them controlling the shacks, controlling the cover on that flat ground in front. Most wanted, though, coming off from not-so-flat hills on the edge of zone as Uncles hold on. The 4-man still alive as grenades go wide, but it will be the shots onto Saint will find the first blood. Now Uncles, Aga, Insane and Simple all still pretty low here, though Saint even will need to be revived up. But as that zone closes in, if Uncles can hold on, they'll have the benefit of that blue zone. They won't be so quick on the draw there. Simple will also fall down as well. 2 now make it 3 as Insane will drop, and only looking for the final pick to make it a clean wipe. But it will be 12 in return. The anger and the oppression from Saint.
Oh, and that is just going to be the last one standing for Uncles. And that is most wanted really needing to wrap this up. Although they have a close entry to the circle, the landscape means that they need a bit more prep work. Once they run down that slope, it's going to be really, really hard. And they're trying to fight off multiple teams. And that with that time, right, during that fight, BeMyLOOT tried to find an entry spot, but the fight shall continue between these two teams.
There's so much smoke, most wanted couldn't even find Saint through the cover. But he's now dipping back and forth through the smoke, making it really hard here for him to find a position in. But finally they find a pick. And it will be in 6th position. Uncles fall with even more Vendetta in the outside, falling to Wild. They will now actually fall in 6th. is it will be, unfortunately, Uncles in that slightly 7th position. The zone goes back to the roadside. Both the hills on the south end looking strong for Wild, moving inside. As Most Wanted hold on to that kill, though. They will find a crucial 2 picks, and only Ki1 now controlling the zone inside the center.
And that dip just under that hill there on the top left of our screen, that is the spot that Most Wanted need to scout, check, and claim. If they can grab that, they've got so much strong angles onto multiple teams. But if they are just lingering on top there, that may cause a lot of trouble when they come down the hill with multiple teams looking at them. But they made it to top 4, and this is the showing that we need from Most Wanted, because they hang around that middle table. They just made it into the finals, but they are a team that we praise for the experience, and it's now or never for them.
Gaijin as well, keep in mind here, still alive. Prada, the solo player, trying to make it work, trying to grab some points back in to this first match and start off day 2 strong. As BeMyLOOT, the still full squad though, with the strength alongside Most Wanted in terms of players. But here we go, Most Wanted moving down is also Ki1, lose a couple to Kid on the outside, taking 2 fights at once as BeMyLOOT split, still full squad though. For the side of Most Wanted, they move their way in with the Molotovs, cut off the escape route in through the smoke for Ki1, but the Rive climbs through. The tires have been popped. There's no escape now. Ki1 have to take the fight, but Ad's looking to finish it off. It goes back under for the snake, though. It's now Danoka. Moha, the only 2 alive. The smoke comes in through the end. They will find the first knock. They will find the second, and Ki1 fall down. 2 teams remaining as also Gaijin lost their solo. Prada out of the game in 3rd. BeMyLOOT, they move back into the zone over, looking for the quick control over Most Wanted from that early fight, as Az also falls down to Glajdi. Make it now the 3 members of Most Wanted alive. You see Tatazaic, though, on the backside, looking for that flank onto Sultan will be crucial if it can find that pick from the back front. Now, Kid, though, in front of all of these side of BeMyLOOT players over the hill already will get knocked, and Kind Boy will find it. That's a crucial pick for them to stop the engagement from MW. But now Tadazaic moving ever closer. The Snake still on the front lines, needs to try find that pick for his team to come back into this match.
Looking at BeMyLOOT, they're using that ridge line to their advantage with the 4x1 split as well. They got multiple angles to stop the peak coming from Most Wanted from the top of that hill. And 12 hasn't even got a spot yet. So this is them needing to go further in, start choking off those sight lines using smokes. But they used so many utilities earlier in that fight against the Uncles. I think with that bit of information, the advantage might unfortunately go over to BeMyLOOT.
Yeah, BeMyLOOT here, they already got a position inside the zone that we talked about. Speedy movement of those vehicles and repositioning allows them to maybe take the chicken dinner here, and it will need it so vitally in 15th position in this leaderboard. This could really be their chance to free them and move back up to the left side, but Nemo takes a big chunk of damage from that grenade from 12, but will keep him side and crucially alive of that smoke. You see Sultan now coming in through the flank side, keeping a control of Tadazaic. 12 won't be able to make it over that ridgeline, will be knocked as behind the car, Tadazaic behind the crate. And the only cover they will find as this phase 7 zone closes in on both of these players. As holding back as 12, their teammate falls down. But that zone, interestingly, as moving back, now has the zone heating up in front of him. Tadazaic, the smoke goes through. And now maybe the vision comes from BeMyLOOT. Sultan steps up. The damage is coming through, but it halts for now. Phase 8 will be where we finish it. Sultan comes over the top, maybe gets found, but won't find a pick through. But a slow pick it is. Tadazaic will keep himself alive. The grenade goes over wide. Does Nemo Kind Boy now find a kill? Clash goes down to Az. Can he find a second? Ooh. Nemo the only one alive, but it will be Most Wanted here with the juicy pick. There won't be enough though, because BeMyLOOT will take the chicken dinner and it will be able to save it from disaster. 6 kills also going their way.
I think this sort of game, right? Like if I'm one of those players, we just kind of may just hate BeMyLOOT for getting the circle over and over again, but we can see how the focus was still there towards that end game. They played that perfectly. They didn't have the high ground, but they know there's a ridge line that they could use, and they timed the rotations right as well. And they, with that tactic coming in, they were able to hold it against the side of Most Wanted so well. But you know what? I'm happy for Most Wanted, although they were so close to getting that chicken dinner. The fight that they had against a decent team, being the Uncles, gave them a lot of momentum. I mean, through all those games in group stages and yesterday, I don't remember Most Wanted having a single game that gotten them more points than this one.
Yeah, of course, in terms of these teams and BeMyLOOT standing up on top, they needed that though here, Tarzan, and they needed to get these points, albeit if they like it or not. But that will only move them up to 11th position, despite the fact they have a lot more points than where they started in the first 4 games. And in fact, even more points than they got through all 4 games in yesterday's matches. Unfortunately, though, it is hard to watch on the bottom side. RENGERS team really in danger, only an 8th of the points compared to the side of the top 2, with 777 and RESQ really storming ahead, starting to create a lead, particularly with even Ki1 here in 3rd position. That is almost a 20-point advantage, 17 exactly, over from 1st to 4th position.
And let's not forget that 777 Esports hasn't gotten a single point, right, in this game. And RESQ didn't go too far as well in this game. One placement point, but they got once again 6 kills. So they are still hitting around 7 to 8 points per game just based on their frags. And that brings them to 38 kill points. And just look at those scores right there. With that amount of kills, kill points alone, they can make it to top 8.
And I think that is where the consistency lies. Because teams aren't getting consistent results that we talked about through chicken dinners, through placement points, it is now going to come down to who can bring out that aggression, who can bring out those kill points instead. And even if they go down early, if you mentioned RESQ, like they bagged those 6 kills in this first match, grab a couple of points with their deaths, they will still be picking up points through each game. And that adds up. Imagine 6 points now, Tarzan, through all 12 of these games. That's still going to bring them over into those high numbers, and add on those placement points as well. A good couple high-scoring games. That's going to be them bringing themselves into really dangerous territory to steal one of these positions out of PMPL US away from these teams.
But you have to be top 3, right, to get PMPL, get into PMPL Europe West, and so you need to be consistent. But you can't only be consistently decent. You have to be consistently good. You have to be strong, and you have to get at least 9 or 10 points per game. And not just that, you also need to factor in and have some of those pop-off games to bump you up even further. Because I mean, 3 spots is very, very few, and you just need to make it count. Like every game right here, and let's not forget, after these games tonight, we're officially done halfway. And that allows us to start to predict some of the trends coming in. And maybe, you know what, if you can't go to the next phases, and you may just be forgotten alongside the teams, like that doesn't matter like what your rank is, people may not be able to remember. If you want to leave your name, you have to be all the way up there.
We've got to engrave it into the leaderboard, engrave it into history, as it were, Tarzan. But we now need to go onto the jungle to see which team can engrave their name into that chicken dinner for match number 6 on out of 16. Of course, that is a short break away. Stay tuned, because we're back on your screens for all that action just very soon. Welcome back to the PMCO UK Finals Spring Split 2021. My name is Highland Floof. That is a floof who is asleep. So we got to be quiet here. And your name here is Tarzan. And of course, we just come off of a beautiful game number 1 here. But now we have to see what BeMyLOOT and of course the side of the rest of these teams can do, because Sanhok was crazy last night. Will it be crazy once again?
Oh, it's really hard to tell. I mean, it comes down to that circle once again, and some of the adaptations coming from the teams as well. We mentioned HardShift, right? They historically like going to the western side of Los Leones. They changed it up and maybe adding more colors to the already congested Hacienda del Patron area, and that is something that we saw in scrims. Same for yesterday as well. So, hoping for a crazy playing path. Yeah, don't hate me for that, players, but I mean that is a test to your playstyle as well as your abilities. So we're going to have that Miramar game really, really soon, and it's just going to be so nice. Very different, right? Very different. Nope, sorry, it's a Sanhok game. What am I talking about? And you know what? We will hold on to that Miramar one. That's a little.
It's a distraction. It's a distraction. That's
it's a
what
distraction,
it is.
you know. And
Yeah.
but that point remains, though, right, Highland? It remains for a team like HardShift, because for this map as well, they made the swap to jump on the northwestern island, and that also probably explained how they had some decent points as well from yesterday's game too. So they might be here to just to repeat that. Of course, we always talk about the size of this map, how a playing path in particular this one doesn't really matter, right? Because teams can just go to anywhere they want.
And of course, Sanhok is open fields, but what isn't so open is potentially the speed at which these teams will have to go and the pace that these teams will be forced to go at in this second game. I am very aware that these teams will know, and these teams will be very aware that how detrimental it can be from yesterday's game to not have a position in the zone towards the end, and you can expect teams to be going to their best to make sure that they do not fall behind, because it's particularly with a zone like this here, Tarzan, it could go absolutely anywhere. But trickily, it could go into any of these three islands still.
And this is a circle that looks quite like the yesterday one, right? It was still inconclusive when it comes to which side or which island is going to head to towards the very, very late. Basically, the second last circle, it was still like the gods of PUBG still couldn't make the mind up. But you know what? We've got some changes here for this game, and that's just adds so much spice. So, I mean, it's not Miramar, right? So, apologize for that one again. But you know what? This is nice, because this contested draw over at Paradise Resort can change a lot of things. Same for these drops on this northern side as well. Starboy from Royal Knights trying to put some pain into the uncles early. And HardShift that we mentioned have gone back to Cow.
They have gone back to Cow. And an interesting note that, of course, uncles here not dropping over in boot camp like they did yesterday's game. RESQ going to be the only ones inside there. And I think that comes from uncle's disadvantage starting through the early game, right? And they're definitely seeing a lot more of a productive drop here, with TS unfortunately already losing one. Insane looking to pick over a second kill. But as you mentioned, you do have to be careful that even Royal Knights don't pick them up from behind, because they only have that one small compound to be able to take cover and refuge from these teams. As Uncle, you talk about their position, TES find that return knock on Saint.
And this three-way fight right here is just really, really tricky. I mean, when there's one goal right in front of them for uncles, they seem to be able to do that very, very well. But now that they're pinched between two teams, they need to bring that gameplay up to another level. And this is Royal Knights here holding this winning compound yesterday, actually. Not for them, though. It was claimed by other teams. And that compound was so strong in that yesterday's game. And maybe that might be the case once again.
The factor here for Royal Knights taking the strength over that hilltop, and even this other TES team rotating away, albeit one member cannot, because as you see, TES there is just unfortunately picked apart from the rest of his team. RESQ as well will also find a couple knocks of their own, as you see even Royal Knights come over from their hilltop compound, Starboy rotating in to try find the one of TES team. But still, apart from these early starting kills, we haven't seen so much action, albeit apart from those 3-4 knocks at the start of a match.
And me, sometimes we know there are strong compounds in Sanhok, but sometimes people are so much under the pressure of the zone that they don't get to claim the compound that they want. But we can see a compound like the one now claimed by Royal Knights can be so strong that allowed them to get 2 kills without suffering any knocks or casualties. And that is also Starboy just using a wide angle as well to catch up more players, and that is a pretty good play. As long as they understand the true meaning behind trigger discipline, they can probably get a lot out of this.
And I love that overlooking these hillsides, TES team have taken that mantle, and they've actually now taken up that position over on these two teams. Looking as even Starboy now pushed back from that engagement, now has to re-look at his position inside zone, but not so fast. The most wanted kid will be picked up by Gaijin. He will fall down as well, and most wanted already losing one. And I think in terms of position, in terms of aggression, Gaijin don't want to speak too soon and jinx them here, but they have been doing all right compared to yesterday's games. They've got themselves a fourth and Erangel. They've got themselves a couple kills. But now going into Sanhok, I want to see that aggression increase, and I want to see them really turn it up to be able to bring them back up to the potential for those top 3 positions.
It was also interesting to see how BeMyLOOT just disengaged from Paradise Resort, so themselves and RENGERS actually respecting each other's strengths, and they are now in this area that we've been watching the past few minutes, and with that little bit of high ground with some cover from the rocks, they can maybe capitalize on this pretty well. And we also see the side of Royal Knights showing the sightlines from that compound. Now we're able to watch from across the field, but they will lose some players maybe. The double knock come through from behind the tree, while Esports trying to show up right now.
Wild have the even better eagle eyes here on to the Knights, as they will pick up one on to Starboy. Zizzo will confirm that kill. Faster does a quick dip through the buildings and will keep himself alive. And the snipes of Wild Esports. But Cable, not so lucky, just going to bleed down. There's going to be no real hope for him, as he will just bleed out onto that grass at the edge of the cliffside. But we talked about the rest of these teams in this zone. I think it will be interesting, particularly as we see Zizzo get a return knock there. UV on the backside. 777 looking to try and make some knocks of their own. Put up some pressure here as the smoke comes up for more defense. But as we talked about here, teams moving into this phase number 1, because keep in mind, still some of it was in water, still about a 30% water zone in phase number 1, makes it feel a little bit more like phase 2-3, which means these teams need to be adapting slightly quicker to how they usually would, particularly if the zone once again shifts back through to that north end, back into the water even more. There's going to be a lot less position and a lot less moving room for these teams with still 16 up.
And you know what, a little bit disappointing, like from the play for the last 2 minutes, Highland Wolf. It's almost like it's sloppy to watch. You know, like Royal Knights use that compound, they know it's strong, but they also, just from the multiple games, they saw Wild Esports dropping on that coastal line. And they should know that the strength of that compound being maybe towards Paradise side, but you need to be careful of the shots coming from the northwestern island, and they just got heavily punished, losing 2 players from across the field. But while Esports aren't much better either, they were holding that compound like there's only one job, right? Looking across that river, not knowing 777 Esports from Cal, but we already know they like dropping onto that side of the island. So how can you not restrict and defend those angles? And that is something that I'm still waiting. You know, as a region, we need to improve and learn even further.
In terms of not only looking at your own plays, as you mentioned, looking at how the other teams in your competition play, particularly because, of course, it is the same 16 teams that we're seeing through all 16 matches. There's really no excuse now for falling short of not knowing where a team drops going into the second day of finals, considering that these teams have consistently been dropping in the same locations, apart from a handful of squads who do change up their location but do play adaptive. On the downside, though, it will be these teams overlooking this phase 2 as it will shift back on our screens, and it will go up to north like we mentioned here, Tarzan, and it will now really restrict where these teams can move, because particularly around where we finished off yesterday's match with Uncle's Royal Knights and BeMyLOOT, that central position, even overlooking the bridge to 777 and Wild, that's going to be the core spot for these teams to be taking.
And this looks so similar to the circle that we had yesterday as well, right? And we see the side of HardShift now that they've changed the drop location back to Cal. Maybe they are in a position to grab a bit more with the circle. Meanwhile, Wild Esports is still holding strong on this island. And like we mentioned yesterday, although it's on the other side, right, it's still on that northwestern island, but we can see the potential of the circle still going onto that side. And now Ki1, a very strong team, right, in group stages, but we are waiting for them to show up here. They are actually they've got some very decent points so far, but there's no flashy plays is what I'm talking about. But that's not a huge problem, right? Because that means just textbook play, foundation, maybe. So we're not relying on flashy plays, and they are still holding that third spot, by the way, strong at 55 points.
And we've seen the foundations being strong, playing well for teams and giving good results. And even a team like HardShift, right, consistently don't take early kills, don't take early fights. But what they do try go for is the zones and play it quiet. But I have to hold my tongue here because TES not playing quiet at all as they will take down Gunner Gaming. They're 1 versus 4 man for 777. As they will be caught out of position. London making that rotation to try and find a revive, but elsewhere, we do see, of course, BeMyLOOT and TSC Legends rotating away from them, not willing to contest over that hill with Sultan and the rest of their squad controls.
We saw TSC Legends trying to maneuver around this like time and time again. It's not easy with the amount of squads around the area as well. Makes it really, really scary. We saw Lakonostra MVP also showing the similar type of respect based on team distribution, right? They are still on that south side of boot camp in the pass circle, not trying to breach bootcamp too much, because in there we have RESQ, the top fragging team in the finals right now, and that's just good respect. But you know what? Like, most importantly, they need to find a way to get around it. And they can maybe get into a different position to capitalize and stab them from the back. That surprise factor can really change things up.
Fortunately, Ki1 there losing another, as it will be even Hisoka to fall to. Lakonostra MVP bring themselves through the roadside and into the trio and knock down 2 more. Ki1 just down to the solo for now for the rest of the game, looking to try keep themselves in position to not lose points from placements or from kills. Still, as we mentioned, 16 teams alive. In, of course, the quickest map, it is Sanhok, is Phase 3, coming up very, very soon. RENGERS, Gaijin as well, holding strong, but Gaijin is slightly stronger here, overlooking the compound, and with their 2-2 split, positioning, especially over the side of Zaloot, who is that core member on the front line to provide some space for them out of the shacks.
And like I always say, it's not about the geographical distance and separation between the players when it comes to splits. They really need to understand the map, and we will have that shift continuing to go towards the northern side. We will have 30% water in play, but that will make Tatmok in that middle, and Tatmok's so hard to play because look at all these teams still on the southern side. That road just south of Tatmok is really, really hard to cross. So for these teams, right, if I were them, I would go for a bit of a wider rotation, try to hang around the edge and maybe farm it out, because if you want to charge straight in, first of all, we've got Tatmok players, right, to punish the crosses, but we've also got the compound that Royal Knights were holding in that top high ground of that ridge that can farm as well. And Seraphim finally finds some angles with those splits, finding those angles onto TSC Legends, may be able to stop one of the strongest teams in the region to go any further in this game.
Bujo as well, getting knocked on the roadside. His blood will spill all over that concrete, and you see now Bilal, Chiquita looking to make that crossing of their own, revive the teammate. They brought the smokes back up, and smartly here, Gaijin repositioned to try and make an inside zone. They are well aware of this danger of Phase 3. Even though it is only numero tres, it is still going to be a deadly one, as you mentioned. 30% water, Tatmok, and its open land around it. With those dodgy hills just down to the south, it is going to be a tricky maneuver for teams coming up from that southern side. TSC Legends going to lose another. We won't be able to revive Bujo back out of this game. Insane, for Uncle will also find a juicy one onto Cable, as that will be Royal Knights now in their own little world of hurt.
And the Blues are now closing in, and Sons of Odin show a lot of uncertainty in the way that they move. They're pondering which side to go, and that will lead them into a situation like this, right? They are still tanking the blue, and they are still yet to find a spot, and they don't even know where they're going towards. I feel like that is some lack of map knowledge as well, how they end up in that position where a complete passive reason, right? They didn't pick to go there. They just don't know how they wandered into the area of the map. And but it might be different here for Lakonostra MVP, because we can see they wanted to avoid rescue earlier. And then they went to the other side of the map to maybe get some kills across that water, and now back in here to slowly trail, and they are now maybe on par with Rescue when it comes to the strength of the positions.
It will be the strength, I think, of teams even particularly like HardShift, already in towards the center of zone to keep their strength and position and their positional advantage. And albeit in some ways being able to still adapt and move around the zone. But as we talk about teams over in that center, now as that phase 4 zone hits our screen, we'll center around from Cow over to that Tapmore compound, and will now be the onus on 777, on TSC Legends, and on BeMyLOOT, the only 3 teams of all 15 still alive in safety.
You know what, we always talk about how it's very dangerous to use cars in the Sanhok sometimes, but this type of circle, right, I would consider using one myself, just because you can overtake so many teams and just get the entry spot quick. If they know how to use one ridge line or just one side of a building, they can charge all the way in and they will be in position to gatekeep others. But if you want to go on foot, that would be so much harder. And Nori now breaching out of this compound and trying to take multiple knocks onto Rescue.
Rescue, though, fire back with one of their own, and that will be 3 with 2 up for Rescue. But Rescue, they're just completely being obliterated by Lakonostra MVP, and they will fall down to 15. That's a crucial pick and a crucial decisive knockdown of one of the top teams here. Is also Sons of Odin struggling against Vendetta, and Sanya crawling his way with Baka coming for support, and they will find now their 3rd man back up. Vendetta also moving in all the way from that south side, coming slowly their way into zone. Baka gets a shot inside of his knee, but keeps himself alive.
So many running and gunning at the moment, and do bear in mind the sort of Vendetta you keep playing as a trio this game. They went for that very, very long looting phase around Sammy and came in with a car, so maybe if they kept the car well, still, they can use that to charge in, but they're still opting into play edge and finding that angle onto Sons of Odin, not willing to let them go.
You see, still Sons of Odin dipping under those rocks. The only cover they're going to find is that phase 4 closes in around them. Gunner Gaming, though, for the Charger 777, will now find a couple onto TS. Revenge from earlier before, as Londa will find that confirmed. Gaijin Seraphim, though, on that northeastern side, looking to try gatekeep away back onto Vendetta and Sons of Odin. They found one crossing over the road. They look back onto the other side, but Sons of Odin, they've already found a knock onto one of Gaijin. Prada is being knocked down. That opens the door a little bit as you see Lord rotating in. Still, though, that kill feed going off wild. And, of course, 777 finding those kills. Even Rengar onto Prada.
You know what? Seraphim has been playing so well. They've been playing splits, but they thought about it. They've been playing splits, and some of them playing spoiler in the blue, but they've made it work. And now it's for them to even show stronger with the circle in their favor as well right now. They can maybe make it work, and Lord is still striking, trying to get the 6th kill, but the other side is where they have to look at. This is the time to tighten up those formations, and that is Seraphim maybe going down earlier than we want.
But they got Costi inside the zone. That is crucial in terms of positional advantage over some of these teams still to make it inside. As you see down on that south and on that western end, that's where the congestion of these squads will be. Still 12 to make it inside, as Rengar is going to lose another to Gaijin Adobo, but back overlooking the position of Adobo, looking to try find the pick, but has to go back under himself because there's teams and there's players from all different angles, as Insania for his team will pick up another.
Oh, Bak is just playing so ballsy right now. Sanhok, right, with this type of position, with those ridge lines that you need to slowly come in, you need to really limit how much time you are standing up, or not, I should say the time that you're not crawling, and that's back onto the ground, needing to crawl in now as he should, and we could see Seraphim still holding strong here, though the kill feed is now popping with that position from Clady from BeMyLOOT, trying to farm more kills. Beautiful knock onto Eliseo, trying to gain that southern side control.
Clady finding the one onto Lakonostra MVP, but Nori looking over at Pride Rock to try find all of the side of BeMyLOOT over this hilltop, overlooking so many as Nemo gets the shots into him, but a cover fire will knock down another, and Nori gets pinned down from his positional advantages. Lakonostra MVP lose Alicio as well to that play zone. Clady, we talked about on that south end, going with BeMyLOOT to look for another chicken dinner, moving in from that south end, still all 4 players alive, still the full squad and the full strength alive for BeMyLOOT. RENGERS on the outskirts as well, looking over both of these teams, though closer slightly towards that zone.
And all the teams in Tap Mode has been having some time off, but this is time to rotate out. The blue zone's already coming in as well. BeMyLOOT maybe need to play a bit of a sweeping game in the anti-clockwise manner that they can maybe take a Lakonostra MVP. Same for RENGERS, then get a spot in. And avoid that main road, because that slope is so lethal. And this may be the chance Sultan needs to go further in. Maybe Salute can spoil this for them. And that will be him opening fire. Almost made it count, but that will be him just slowly getting eaten up by the blue.
The blue not playing kind here once again as BeMyLOOT feel its wrath. Clady and co will fall down with only Sultan alive for the meanwhile, but it might be short-lived as he will also be picked apart by that guy we talked about. RENGERS going to play spoiler, knock themselves out with also another team. Is a TSC Legends now making it inside zone, but they 6 shifts away from them, and now we still need to make their run through. Only 30 seconds to do it before that zone gobbles them up.
You know what? And Danny actually trying to play that healing game, working out for them, and Seraphim still holding down in that, but look at who's still there as well. Sponge from HardShift has made it to top 4, so 8 points in the pocket at least, and he can just maybe try to find that entry spot, play patient, know when to snake and when to move, and they can still maybe take it because it's only 7 players for these 4 teams.
Opportunity here for HardShift to really bolster themselves up to the top side again of that leaderboard, right in the top 3. TSC Legends, though, they are the one team here that your pick, coming off of the first place in the group stage, they actually do now need, coming from 8th after day 1, these points in their pocket, but Vendetta will fall to the play zone, and out goes one team down to 3. Spongy is being caught, though, by Chiquita. Not able to get under that tree quick enough, not aware of the snakes, and TSC Legends now face up against Gaijin. Adobo Costi, the 2 members versus TSC, but TSC need to move in because that zone almost catches Chiquita, but won't just now. Just a little bit of a tickle before they move in.
And with the circle going over to TSC Legends as well, the Sanhok Seraphim really have to frag this out. I mean, they've got momentum, 8 kills right now, and the duo still need to make it further. Some sight lines has been shown, and that is Chiquita trying to end the Costi right there, and that is the cost. Adobo need to make that 1v2 play. That's still possible, though.
Adobo, it won't be possible, it'll be impossible, as TSC Legends will pick up the second chicken dinner. And crucially, TSC Legends also pick up these 8 kills, but not so fast in terms of also Gaijin. They took that second spot, and they also took 8 kills alongside it. And
with that win, right, TSC Legends will go all the way up to at least 3rd place. And I mean, maybe our crystal balls are good, Island Wolf, and we talked about how TSC has that history of bouncing back after day 1, and this is the start, right? And this 23 point game will bring them all the way up to quick maths right there, 57 points. So they are getting closer there, and you know what? Also very strong for Seraphim, taking those 8 kills and making the count when they've lost 2 players kind of through that mid game. So they made it count. The kill points are there, and placement points slowly come in from that discipline of rotation as well. So very good stuff for them, and we can see how TSC Legends actually made it to 4th place, because Lakonostra, with some healing from Danny, will be able to grab a few more points in that game. Actually, more than that, they were at 47 points. So they got 13 points from that one alone. A lot of fragging helping with that point climb as well.
Of course, though, the teams in the top after game number 1, 777 and RESQ, the gap has been closed, like we talked about here. Going from that first match, Tarzan, now with only 10 points separating between first and third position, TSC Legends, with their dominant win just in that previous match, take themselves up to all the way past HardShift and into fourth position. And I think even you see the likes of Gaijin, they've moved themselves up from the bottom, and now they're already at 48 points. They're now in 7th position, and it looks like a very, very different team compared to what we saw in yesterday's games.
Yeah, definitely. And we can see this bounce back happening as we speak. TSC Legends now joining the top pack, Gaijin joining the middle pack after those games. Doesn't take a chicken dinner sometimes. You just need to have some good frags. But that leaves me pretty worried about 4 teams like Sons of Odin, Esports and Vendetta UK, because they have not had some games like that. And you know what the problem is, Highland Wolf, is that they doesn't even seem to be showing some tendencies to taking some of those fights in a very clean manner, and that is quite worrying.
It is quite worrying indeed for some of these teams to really be able to show up where it counts, Tarzan. But what we do have to look at is the thing in front of us, and that is Miramar, the third match where we actually saw a very interesting spot for the side of RESQ, who through scrims looked like one of the most dominant teams going through onto this map. Didn't have a strong showing yesterday, finished around at Los Leones, where Uncles were, with their foundations being strong, the team that were able to pick up that win. And it will be interesting to see if Uncles, a team here now starting to slip a little bit on our leaderboard, if they can bring themselves back up with another strong showing, another patient showing as well. Even the likes of TS, who picked up second, also slipping down after these first 2 games. But it is 1 game away, it is 1 break away, and we will be back on your screens with that action very, very soon. Hey, back off, face. Oh my goodness. He's everywhere, dude. He's after my camera. He's after everything in this room. I've put him under control now for game number 3 as we hit ourselves onto Miramar for the PMCO UK Finals day number 2 here. And, of course, sponsored by Xiaomi Innovation for Everyone. Gracias. And also gracias to my wonderful co-caster here, Professor Tarzan, joining me alongside the ride for 2 more beautiful games still to come in tonight's action.
Yep. Oh, small audio thing there, but you know what? Excited. Finally, Miramar. Some points that I mentioned earlier, maybe by mistake, now really going to take that away. That Hacienda del Patron, right, area that might be very, very congested. We need to see how a team's going to play it. And we'll need to see the playing path as well. And you know what? I want to see some of these teams getting the end circle at their drop spot and showing how they can out-knowledge and outplay their enemies if that ever happens.
Well, we saw it, right, with Ki1 over Lakonostra MVP in yesterday's matches. And going into today, that is what I want to see again, but not only by Ki1, not only even by Uncles changing their drop spots through these first 2 games, but I also want to see a little bit more aggression generally from the teams. We have seen still 16 teams make it all the way to now to phase 5. That's great and all, but in terms of the kills that I want to start seeing, especially with so many teams potentially going to be so close together, that's what I really want to be looking for out in this 3rd game.
Oh, and we're going to have a pretty spicy one as well. The playing path going from Puerto Paraiso all the way to... It's a bit hard to guess this one. You know what? El Pozo. I'm just going to put it there. And that means that we're going to have a pretty equal playing path. And you know what? I'm off this time. And that's going to be La Cabrera. N of that playing path. And you know what? That's a city that we haven't seen teams drop over, not just because it's not their favorite drop spot, it's because we don't really get that type of playing path for, haven't had that in a while now. But you know what? Los Leones is completely open for these teams to grab, and HardShift showing us how they adapt once again. Now going for that southern drop spot, it can be a very interesting one.
Yeah, much different to yesterday's playing path that we saw. And of course, teams should be very, very familiar as well with Los Leones being, of course, that end of zone in yesterday's games. They should be able to be aware of the areas around it, the strongest positions, not only yesterday's games, but in general, we expect that higher tier of gameplay coming out from these teams. And a place that I did want to note here that is always congested on the side of Miramar is over in Hacienda del Patron, over on the north side, over even on that plateau that you see RESQ going to settle up. I do imagine so once again, like they always seem to do. We hit that kind of 4 or 5 minute mark and you see them overlooking the entire compound.
And TSC Legend has been dropping towards El Asaha, right, the past few games on Miramar, and now because of the playing path, they are finding it slightly harder to float all the way there, and that will leave them in this junkyard area pretty close to Sons of Odin. So both of these teams should be able to tell each other's positions based on those parachutes giving away their positions, and that could be a potential early clash. And I think the similar situation will be explained on that southeastern side. So a Puerto drop coming from Vendetta UK, with HardShift being close to that area, HardShift can maybe make use of that position advantage from the hills and maybe approach Puerto to hunt down a few players of Vendetta.
Yeah, I'd love to see even HardShift use a rotations round from the south side to be able to make it into a strong position. Of course, that zone did go over to that southwestern side, and HardShift in one of the strongest positions to make a strong rotation. Finally, though, we do see some respite for the likes of TES over in Picado. No team's going to be second dropping on top of them this time round, and we're going to have a much more peaceful early game, and I think this is something that TES really start to need. But I do say peaceful early game. We've already picked up 1 kill. We've already picked up first blood in this match. Goodness knows from where, and these so quickly their first 3 minutes of the game, but what they do now have is a first kill in their pockets. They got the momentum starting to roll. The ball starting to really snowball into a bigger momentum for a win here. If they can come out from Picado, if they could have either two choices to rotate up to even the San Martin and Picado Hills and overlook teams rotating into the north, or make that strong rotation into zone.
And that kill for TES team is on BeMyLOOT. So the team that showed us how they could bounce back, right? They got that game 1 win and didn't quite show up in the second game. And this is further punishment and further challenge for them after losing that player. But the decisiveness to pull away from there to go towards Chemicera should be in their favor. And with the circle, like you mentioned, Highland Wolf will leave that southwestern part of the circle pretty empty. It allows teams like Vendetta and HardShift on that southern side to maybe rotate along the coastal line on that south part to enter from that bottom of the map, and will get them some good position advantage, unlike the teams that dropped around the plateau of Picado Hill and Hacienda. Still, they need to maybe go through each other to fight for a spot on the northeastern side.
It would be interesting as well to see the rest of these teams, and from the north side, even El Pozo, 777, how they choose to make it in through down to that southwestern zone, who have that position advantage as well over on that western side to rotate very freely through into a strong position come phase 2, come phase 3 into the zone. And that actually allows them even some time here compared to some other teams to be able to loot more up in the early game, to be able to grab themselves some more equipment into their backpacks, and then come into later games stronger over the long course and over the long run for some of these teams.
No, I've been watching a little bit of the NA scene as well, and the telecaster on that broadcast, Zute, of course, is a very experienced player, but he made a very good point when it comes to timing that first rotation. And he said, if you're quite far from the circle and from the plane path, and you know that that should be no congestion around you, you can kind of slow it down a little bit, take that comfort to loot a bit further from that plane path to slowly come back in. But if you are in around dead center of that circle, you may want to go to those positions earlier so you can claim control. So that brings me to talk about Sons of Odin there. They've been changing the drop spots a little bit around that northeastern side, right? And this a potential clash between them and TSC Legends, but they would just drift away. So they were looking a little bit confused sometimes, and with that position, they should know there's no further teams to their north, and they can actually go towards maybe Cruz del Val to get a lot more loot before coming in, because with that studying of the map and just the tendencies of the team, they know that they can't charge straight through Hacienda del Patron. So might as well just take more time, right, to extend that looting phase, grab a bit more information and loot before trying to charge through into the circle to find a good spot. And meanwhile, we've got rescue here around San Martin, an area pretty hard to maneuver around if there are teams like Ki1 looking over the city.
Yeah, it was a beautiful snipe there from Hackshot, and even able to confirm the kill, bringing RESQ just down to trio. Tick making that panic maneuver through with a buggy to rotate to the rest of his team with the smoke bow as well. They will start to come under fire, but it is very, very far away and going to land only maybe a few sprays, if anything, from these teams. Don't doubt RESQ to be able to survive here, but they do run straight into their next door neighbors, the Sons of Odin. And now on the motorway and highway towards the center of zone, they're going to be trying to honk their horns against the rest of these teams because they are also right beside them, looking for some strong position inside. And Hyper rotates back around with the side of blood. Albert and the rest of the Sons of Odin not quite quick enough in the draw, and they will miss out on a strong opportunity to pick up some kills.
I didn't disagree with what Sons of Odin's trying to do, so I mentioned their drop sort earlier and how they might be low on loot, but they just wanted to take the control on this plateau early, and that actually gave them some information, and they would get a rotation past that, but the resistance can be there soon, because while esports are trying to control this plateau from the sets of compound, and Sons of Odin should know better, and with that stop there to maybe scout further, that should be a very, very good maneuver, and I think they should be rewarded for that.
I think even particularly coming down to phase two, you've seen the teams start to rotate their way in. What I do actually like, although that RESQ have, of course, lost their one member, they will have a strong position moving early now into the central zone. And they actually have free reign for the most part to choose exactly where they want to go and be ahead of teams adapting to the phase two zone and even heading potentially into phase three if they can find a central position. No hardships coming their way come that third phase will really be able to upset their position, depending, of course, where phase two goes. However, Wild, though, right in front of our faces, are now going to have the congestion up against Sons of Odin, are going to have that fight in their path, and Sakura up in the front, that's going to be the crucial spot for them to try stop them over on these power grid hills. So that zone will finally now start to shift over into phase number two, centralizing, albeit slightly to the south end, with those south end teams like Gaijin and HardShift coming back up from the coastline of Valdemar.
Although this circle, right, seems like been very merciful for these teams because a lot of them have a spot in there. Of course, Vendetta still have to rotate through from Impala now, but this circle, right, separated from the top left to bottom right through that main road, and with that landscape on either side of the road being very, very tricky and very downhill, right, towards that main road, make it so hard. You kind of have to dedicate whether you want to play on the bottom left half or the top right half. And of course, we see quite a few teams going for that wide rotation. On the southern side, we saw HardShift and Gaijin Seraphim needing to find a spot there. Also need to find not just any spot, like I mentioned yesterday, a spot that allows you to scout further in to prepare you for the next rotation and not rely on that spot that you found for the safety. For that, half a minute, you need to start planning forwards. And the Sons of Odin here has this position in the circle, still in here, finding an angle onto Zizo. And that is a mistake there because you just should know that Sons of Odin has been there for the past minute or two.
You see even the second not going to come through as Big Boss will also fall down, and now going for that revive. They didn't see the angle it was coming from, and Sons of Odin now crashed into the compound. Two-man advantage here over Wild. Sakura going to do all they can, but now comes multiple angles to Sons of Odin's squad. They're going to pick up now a third kill. Bowler's maybe going to find a way for a strike back out into game number 4, because he's the only one alive, and he's got to pull off the 4-pin set of Sons of Odin.
And while esports just place it on the silver platter for Sons of Odin, huge mistake there. But I need to also give compliment to Sons of Odin, right? They know the numbers advantage that they have. 2 knocks and they just send it all in multiple angles. Then we also now found the last player who's trying to drive away. Baka using the vehicle to do bumpy cars to stop that further and almost take down the other one. He'll continue to rotate far and wide, chase it down. They want every single point from this fight.
No respite for Bowler, and Baka going all out on the buggy for this kill. Looking now to try pick off Bowler on top of the hills. They will lose their vehicle. They will now be in danger of being knocked, but that ridgeline will protect Bowler just for the moment. And with Ki1 overlooking them as well, they can't go too much further for Baka for this kill.
And the rest of Sons of Odin have to catch up as well. Baka has been on adrenaline right now, naturally through his body. Doesn't need that syringe, chasing it down with that UMP as well. But he needs to know the landscapes around. They need to, with support, grab this last kill. Bowler forced to be on foot, and he can just go down any second right now.
Thankfully, though, Bowler does able to survive for now, but you see even now Sons of Odin going further with more rotations. It's brutal to watch for Bowler. There's no escape. Hello, another one comes your way, but he smacks them down, and now with the Uzi onto Shoxy. Maybe too aggressive here for Sons of Odin as he lose one. Won't find the pick, folks. And with Ki1, we talked about the beautiful headshot coming over onto Bowler. That would be Wild. Eliminated, but not by Sons of Odin. Now, with that kill going through, Sons of Odin will realize that another team is here, and Shoxy in a dangerous position himself as that zone shifts back over down south, away from Picado Hills, over now to Macero on the south, which will be the strongest compound overlooking that central, dangerous downhill belt that we talked about before.
Oh, that main route is still there to separate the two sides of the circle, and this circle makes the Triple Church one of the strongest position to control the multiple high grounds around and the landscape. But across the road, TSC Legends and the side of RENGERS, I believe, have some decent spots as well. Those compounds got a lot of chance for them to get 360 view. And Sons of Odin need to maneuver further as well. We mentioned how they might not be high on resource from the earlier phases from those drop spots and timing of rotation. Now, after taking that one fight as well, now in the open with some fuming vehicle, Ki1 might have the upper hand just based on that resource difference.
But Ki1 needs to get their move on here really and have a stronger position in zone, I do think so. They will have teams rotating around them, and yes, they have a compound in play. Yes, it's inside zone, but they do have to be aware that if that zone continues to hard shift away from them, they need to still have some form of way to be able to escape from Sons of Odin. On the other end, though, HardShift losing one, as they also struggle to find their way in. And I think this is really where the trickiness comes in of this zone. The fact, of course, we mentioned that main route coming through the center actually splits this zone in two, with TSC also finding one to RENGERS. But this zone being split into two separate parts means that teams, whichever side they're on currently, means that they will be on that side, particularly probably till the end of the game. And unless they have some of that zone going in their favor, if it goes towards a hard shift in the opposite end, they're going to find very quickly that navigating their way through that open fields, through those ridge lines, is going to be a lot trickier said than done.
You know what? Some fights need to be taken early, I mean, at any phases, right? So might as well take some of them now. And when it comes to what fights to take, it comes down to the knowledge of the compounds. Because with this type of circle highland wood that, like you mentioned, with the main road separating it and the potential of rotating away from it, you need to pick compounds that allow you to protect your vehicle as the main resource for later rotations. And that is what I want to see these teams do, picking the compound of their choice that will give them that possibility to provide vehicle protection to maybe pick that particular fight. And now we've got 777 esports on top of Ki1, and with the upper hand going to Ki1, that circle will go over to Chumacera, so that hill control coming from Lakonostra MVP can heavily favor them. But do bear in mind, very close to them on that southwestern side, we have the full team of, no, the trio of BeMyLOOT.
BeMyLOOT, one of the strongest positions here on top of Lakonostra MVP. And I think we're going to see actually teams make that rotation around, especially where HardShift is. You see on that south side, of Chumacera, over on the north of that compound, though, overlooking on the highest point of this map, all the rest of these teams still with cover and buildings in their favor. And I think HardShift actually control, potentially, if the zone goes their way, one of the strongest positions inside here, and one of the strongest potential to really pick up a chicken dinner in this third match.
And I mean, they're kind of relying on that comfort that Chumacera is kind of empty now. I'm not sure whether they know that information, but they get the access to the south side of Chumacera, which is the high hill side. So if they can slowly rotate towards just to the northern edge and cliffside of that hill part of Chumacera, right, they would get all the information downhill. They can see the mountain across the other side on the north part of Chumacera, and they can maybe sit inside the circle to grab some placement points, because they really need that now after losing 2 players to Gaijin Seraphim. And that's also RESQ. We mentioned how strong they can be on Miramar after taking that 1 kill and losing 1 player. They've got further rotations to make.
What a beautiful 180 there. They're going to need to find some Banshees there, because that's a crazy flip. They're also going to need to find a way quicker into the zone, because with that flip, 777 overtake them. His TS team will also find one on to the side of Uncle. Sons of Odin Shoxy also struggling against Vendetta as they lose multiple members. As 777 now up ahead. They have found Ki1. Gunner Gaming looks to try to pull off the 1 versus 4. Not so quick this time, as they will lose their life. Have separated away from 777. Tango and Co. All they can do is retreat as they watch their fellow team member fall down in front of their eyes. Ungle in the middle of TS team, looking short-lived right now, is also Royal Knight struggling against Sons of Odin in the background.
But that fight for Sons of Odin, right, is not an easy one to take. There's got some more rotation to make, and but with that split rotation formation as well from 777 Esports, it might not be so easy for Sons of Odin because they're a little bit too clumped right now. But RESQ is on the other side to make this count, and they still need to come in further. 3 man in 1 car actually wasn't getting punished so far, but they still need to breach this. And those high hills, very, very hard to push up.
Yes, they're in the north side, but they do have these ridge lines. You see the position of the terrain. They got ridges every so often. It will protect them from these teams up north. Albeit they still have to come over them. They still have to come into the brief moments of line of fire of teams up on the top of that mountainside. But it isn't going to be just a straight, flat, open area. They do have some protection. RESQ Blood takes a car up as well to try provide some movability and some mobility here going into the later stage of the game. But away from Chumacera, this now zone will go, and away from every single player and every single team, 0 members inside this phase.
If Gaijin Seraphim can come in to the center circle right now with that hill to overlook the rest of Chumacera, as well as stopping all the other teams coming in, they can maybe take this chicken dinner. But you know, Inori from Lakonostra MVP is more bold, more decisive, and will send themselves in first. Trailing behind them is Ki1, and that's going to be a bit of a center circle clash.
Look in the center of Ki1, they all jump in for that position. And on the outskirts, so TS, they're looking to try take down guys. You mentioned their hesitancy to move into zone. They lose their chance to have a strong position. TS behind them, though, RESQ also coming up. They're looking for their position towards the center of this zone as well. In the center, though, Ki1 knocked down Lakonostra MVP. On the outskirts, Costy will get knocked. Lord will be on that low health bar too. Needs to try find his pick on the 1 versus 4. The Snake, can he make it work as they peek over the edge? The bullets come down, but into the ground, not into the players, and Lord will fall on top. And now only 2 remain for Gaijin as the players and teams start to lose their members, lose their lives, lose their position in this game.
I mean, why did Gaijin go for that 2-2 split? I mean, I know they are wanting to expand the area of control, but leaving 2 on that side that will definitely be contested is just not a good play, and that is them once again down to 2 players in this game. And I mean, it worked out for them somewhat last game on Sanhok getting that 2nd place, but now it's going to be a lot harder, especially with an edge position. And the center now controlled by Ki1 and Lakonostra MVP, with these teams slowly pushing in. RESQ with only 1 car and 3 players are not scared to take these fights.
Vendetta below saves Lakonostra MVP from the 3 Ps of RESQ, moving up from 3 different directions. But Danny dipped up dodge, won't be able to dodge the side of Ki1 up above in the hillside, where we'll find a knock, and RESQ now have to make that run themselves. The smokes come through on tick, keep all 3 alive. Below still on the outskirts, so we need to be aware of that 1 player still alive, but might be picked off, might be finished by Ki1 as Hisoka finds that potential knock. On the other side, though, Ki1 deleting away the health bars of Hyper alongside a help of his phase 5 zone, forcing his players in even further and into danger. They barely keep themselves alive, and that will be crucial for RESQ. Unfortunately, Tick goes down. Blood will also fall as well as Hisoka finds another, but because they got Hyper through, they keep themselves alive.
10 kills right now. After this bleed out, they will get the 10th one, and Ki1 has been really strong tonight. They went for the circle and the center circle, and it's almost as if they know what's the strongest spot is in this phase, and they just went and take it. But some of the other teams are just too hesitant coming through, and I mean for the teams who rely on the security of the hard covers in these buildings in Chumacera, they will find themselves in need to come out of them, and that's just going to be so hard. But Hackshot's trying to peek too far and get punished for peeking.
Ki1 looking to try and pick up even more as they succeed into double digits. TSC Legends, they lose K2 with the car also gone. Chiquita has to make it on foot, has to make it a 1 versus 2 happen as Ki1 close their position around their prey. Chiquita finds a one potential knock on the grenade if he can cook it right onto Moha. Dips back over, finds a pick, and that will be the first down for Ki1. Hisoka and now also Hackshot crawling from the backside. Can Hisoka pull off even more for their team now? TSC driving up the full squad and Hisoka on the back foot this time. The 1 versus 4 against them as Bilal also coming over the hill. Even more grenades popping off, put him down to half HP. The smokes also come in for blockaded vision. Bujo, Bilal over the front line, still throwing in more grenades over the rock. And Hisoka barely keeping themselves alive. A sliver of HP remaining. Is Hisoka the only player inside this team alive? Keeps himself up for now. Tries find a revive onto Moha. Could be dangerous as Bujo maybe might throw that grenade over the rock again, straight into the arms of the remaining 2 players. No, they won't. It will go into the smoke, and that brings Moha back alive. And Hisoka and Moha are still a chance, but Hisoka takes another grenade onto Bujo, and it just might be curtains, despite the fact they got them up. They go back down, and that will be the 2 from Ki1 out, and it will be Ki1 out of the game.
And TES is still in this one. If I see that properly, they've been getting quite a lot of kills as well. And with that, 2 kills onto Gaijin Seraphim, they will be able to grab one of the strongest spots. And now TSC is the new kings of that hill. Seraphim under pressure once again. TES will take out the 3rd one on them. And Adobo slowly bleeding out as well would be the result for them. A 5th place on this game 3. And TSC is still trying to farm. And the TES so clumped right now with no position to escape, and all of them clump in that position. And you know what? The gods of PUBG has at least blessed them with the circle. So it comes down to how TSC play this. But you know what? I've talked about them before. When the circle's not on their side, they somehow find a way to make it work. But do bear in mind, there are many other teams who's trying to do the same thing.
One of these teams here still RESQ alive, keeping with, of course, Hyper, the sliver of health that brings RESQ from a disastrous, potentially 11th, 12th position all the way now into the final 4. With the kills they picked up before, will give them some placement points and some benefit here from a quite miserable 3rd game. Also, as Chiquita pops in over the hill to BeMyLOOT, they now come down to 3 players. But TSC, they won't be stalled just yet. As now they lose a 2nd, might just be curtains. So as BeMyLOOT look to close it on top of him. K2 also now falls, and Bilal, the only player alive. Can they find it? They find 1 pick, but they gotta heal, they gotta reload. It's just not enough time as BeMyLOOT. Nemo even comes from behind. TES from that shack still alive.
And that has been how actually making it work for them. I was so worried for them on that push because BeMyLOOT had the idea, right? They know they have to clear the hillside before going further in, and that's them actually getting so much work done. But Sultan is the last one standing, and that is actually TES gone. So it's actually a 1v1 right now. TES, and we're out, and that is it done. TSC got it.
You do have TSC taking the 3rd game, and they take the 7 kills, but BeMyLOOT once again in 2nd position here, just like Gaijin. Now in the previous game, they took the 2nd position, and TSC, they've taken up 2 games now. They've taken up 2 wins, and you see this team starting to climb their way up the leaderboard, starting to make their stand, and showing us, as you mentioned, why they took that 1st spot, why they are one of the favorite teams here to win it all.
And maybe, you know what, the MVP might be ourselves, Hylamov. We've been studying the team, seeing how they play, and we made our pick. Of course, we are rooting for all these teams, but our picks have took the first and second spot on this leaderboard, and that is TSC making it strong in this one. I mean, it was so scary to watch. It's all about reflex, and you know what? BeMyLOOT could have taken the chicken dinner, I think, although they only got 3 there, but they've got that high ground, and if they know the landscape around that more, and maybe put more pressure onto TSC before looking at TES, that could have been a very, very different game.
It could have been completely different. Even RESQ, though, keeping themselves alive to those final positions with those placement points that they were able to garner, does bring them into pole position once again. As you mentioned with TSC, now overlooking them and overshadowing them is still 777 in third position. That leaderboard, though, keep in mind, around that top standing still is pretty separated from RESQ, looking down towards even the fourth position, still 15-point gap. And that is going to be a comfortable, albeit small, position for RESQ now going into the final game of day 2 before we hit that halfway point. And my concern, though, on the other end, is still on teams down on the second half, though. On, of course, the side of BeMyLOOT and below. BeMyLOOT, despite the fact they have won chicken dinner, despite the fact they took that second position, they've still only really half the points they are in the top 3 position. And they've still got a long way to go, and particularly even some more aggression we want to see out of them. Most of their points coming from placements alone.
You know what? That is still considered a great bounce back because they got 1 chicken dinner and 1 second place, and that is a very, very good start. We've got 2 more days. If they can have that consistency when it comes to placement points, they can slowly make it maybe all the way up top. But for that to happen, they need to rely on teams like RESQ and TSC to not know what to do with their lead, right? Because we talked about mentality all the time, how to bounce back when you're at the bottom, but also how not to be complacent when you're at the top. And so I really want to see RESQ and TSC go all the way, of course, because we want to see good qualities from these teams. And but you know what? We'll get to find out. That last game might be the continued dominance for some of these top teams. Because don't forget, some of these teams like Sons of Odin and HardShift has shown up in Erangel sometimes, and that might be them, maybe to stir up that leaderboard and making it really, really spicy.
Potentially they could, but on the other hand, we do have to go for a quick break. We have to go for a quick one here, Tarzan, before we jump back into Erangel and see if RESQ and TSC Legends can uphold their lead and show us why we are the big brain caster boys here on the desk. But as I say before that, we've got a little bit of a break in the hands of you guys at home. So be tuned, stay tuned here, and we will see you guys just very shortly on the other side. Tarzan? Tarzan, where am I?
Hello? Who's
Where
there?
are you, dude? I need to find you. I've lost you. Wait, hang on. Okay.
Someone's lost
Buddy?
control over the fluffy toy.
Attack! We've got it. Okay. Welcome back, guys, to the PMCO UK Spring Split Finals. Oh my goodness, I lost my words. Day 2. Here we are on match number 4. And we just come off of the chicken dinner with, of course, the side of TSC Legends taking that chicken dinner away. And, of course, joined with me and the one of Press Tarzan. It's a bunny, of course, but Highland Flu's got to wait over there for now because we have to talk about this final game here, Tarzan. This is coming down to the wire with our two favorites, RESQ TSC Legends, who is going to take that top spot potentially by the end of our halfway mark.
You know what? Thinking about having only 3 teams representing the region to go to WLEU West, if these 2 teams have already taken 2 spots, it's 1 spot for the other teams to grab, and that is pretty crazy. And you know what I want to see, Highland Wolf? I think all these teams need to be tested to their limits, right, in this game. So don't give me that usual playing path. Give me something crazy. Make them adapt. Force them to show us something different. And that is something that I really, really hope that we get to see in this game 4. And after this, we will be officially done halfway for this PMCO UK Finals. So you know what? Time for some spicy ones. And we will head over to the green hills of Erangel in a matter of seconds.
It will be the Green Hills going over that side of Stalba, over Severny, straight down onto the side of Milter and Farm, if I do believe so myself. I've stolen your game, I've stolen your spice, I've stolen your show like here, Tarzan, but I hope I'm right.
I think you're pretty close there. I mean, the misfortune here, right, is that it's still an Eastern playing path. So we are going to see TSC Legends around Mansion and Prison. We're going to see Lakonostra MVP over at Lipovka. But it will shake things up a little bit because all those teams that like going to Hospital and Georgia Pool, naming the Gaijin Seraphim, we've also got RENGERS and RESQ now put to the test because that's a little bit too far for them to land.
Indeed, and I think the side of this Western, even TAS team going over to that west side, they're going to have to rethink their drop spots. And I think what we do have in some respite for some teams, though, is like Royal Knights, like 777, who will, this time round, be able to drop back over in a comfort towards the South Island once again. So although it is discomfort for some, it is positive for others. And I am really wanting to see, now we talk about TSC Legends in pole position, we talk about teams dropping over them and trying to take them out early. Lakonostra MVP, coming from Lipovka, we've seen them take it to teams before, want to see them now try to take it to their leaders, potentially over them.
The last time that we've gotten a somewhat Eastern playing path for a Western finish, HardShift took that win, and they made it count as well because that was the last day of the group stages that basically that game send them into the finals, and they also took that first chicken dinner on Erangel with a similar circle as well. So this kind of at least spice things up, will put more pressure on the teams on the eastern side, making them think when to rotate and how, because they don't have a position in that circle. But that also means some of the teams may get that free access, and the team still heading towards Georgia Pool can rely on that security on that western coastline. And for the 2 teams landing on the military base island, they can go through that western bridge to come in to the Ferry Pier area. If they want to go to Gatka, pretty open still.
They are potentially going to be pretty open here as well, over to that Gatka fields. That's going to be where I expect teams to really be looking to drop here, Tarzan, to really be looking to rotate round 2. at the start of this phase one to get that central position under their way, coming from, of course, Georgia Pole potentially even. But right now, it's still up against in this Milta area. Gaijin, they split up their playing path from the side of Georgia Pole itself, and it's not working out for them because they've now lost a second, and Adobo very far away. They're going to lose their comrades, and Adobo now going to be that sole player alive for their squad.
And I mean, of course, I've been asking for these, right? Asking for a secondary drop spot coming out from a team like Gaijin Seraphim. But they actually need to do the homework as well. It's not just a bold decision when they come against a team like the Uncles who know how to play their drops, who knows how to play textbook plays. And that is just 4 kills going on to that silver platter for Uncles. And Gaijin is out at 16th place.
Yeah, indeed. Unfortunate here end, and unfortunate night for Gaijin Seraphim, but they now have still 2 more days to go, but they're going to need to make some really standout plays going into tomorrow's games. But back in the present, back in tonight's final match, we even see the side of Milta Power being taken up by 777 this time, and on Strikes Nova, being taken up round by 777 as we see them back in their comfort, back in to their crate boxes and picking up all the juicy loot inside of it. I think it's going to be an interesting position for them now to actually freely rotate, albeit apart from Royal Knights, round into this western side zone and be able to have a strong showing and a strong position moving into later game. And I think the same, of course, can be said for this other team on the south, like we mentioned, Royal Knights themselves.
Both these teams haven't shown a lot of preference when it comes to rotating early, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, with that position being very far from the circle, they can take their time to loot, and they can get to, remind themselves what teams like to do, what positions they like to take, and they can plan forward. And I mean, I still can't shake it off, right? Like, for what Gaijin Seraphim has done, I don't disagree, right? I'm not saying that I'm recommending teams to drop to somewhere that they don't know. But if you actually want that surprise factor and to challenge another team, pick one that has a history of choking when they don't expect someone to jump and land with them. Uncles is not one of those teams. They will take that fight, and they have a very strong tendency in winning those contested drop. So if you want to do that, right, pick another team. I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad about any other teams in this lobby. Of course, they deserve a spot in our finals. But Gaijin needs to do their homework and start studying more than what seems to be good, and just need to use those statistics from the previous games.
Indeed, they will, but they will have to use it into tomorrow's matches, because now back in round to that eastern side, we see TSC Legends making their movement already into this first phase. They've been quick in the draw here, and that will provide them some green pastures here to take control of, and some juicy position to take control of as well. But over in the schools area, you see so many teams before in previous games of Erangel have to fight over here, and it's interesting to know that BeMyLOOT taking one of these positions early on, playing it safe inside between all of these compounds and avoiding potentially being spotted, as you see, by teams like Lakonostra MVP, rotating past and rotating for a further position into zone.
And I think they have picked a pretty good compound, because if we think about how all the teams rotate, they may rotate through Headshot Hills to grab a further spot. So having a compound that gives them the overlook over Headshot Hills can get them some early kills, but they just need to be aware of how they get to escape from those, because if teams notice their position and want to pinch them, there are sufficient high hills and the elevation from the hills from behind.
Team here that also needs to have a strong showing, particularly in this A game here, is Vendetta UK. Bilal, Bruty, and Aiden, only a trio, which is so hard to watch here going into this final game, considering their position on the leaderboard. Tarzan, they still need to make it on to that left side, into the top 8. Even Wild here, and a team that was kind of strong actually in terms of the group stage. Actually had a really good end position, high inside of the safety of these teams. Now needs to have a strong showing as well in this final match because they too are the pressure now on them.
And they picked this very interesting compound here, and I actually don't like it, High Level, because I've just spoken about escape strategies. With them clumping in here, I hope they move further though, but if they choose this as a spot to hold as a 4, then teams can just hold that coastal line, right? They can third-party peek them, they can use Everest to go against them and stop them rotating out of it, and if teams go all the way, to the South Georgiable crates, they can further choke those rotations as well. So I want to see them do something different.
I think it will be up to some of these teams to really see what they can do to adapt now, going into the end of day 2, going forward to the final half of the PMCO UK finals, to show us that they're not just a one-trick pony here, Tarzan, to show us that they can now be able to shift alongside some of these difficult zones. And talking about difficult zones, it is going to be familiar footing for many of these teams over in Georgia, Paul, but it is going to be so far away from where that playing path originally landed that as a result, you see from that eastern side all of the congestion of these teams moving in towards Everest.
And you know what? With HardShift knowing that northern part of the map quite well, they went back to around Severny and they saw Gaijin Seraphim fall earlier as well. So they know North Georgia Pole should be free rail estate and they can maybe go in to grab more loot as well and just wait for the next cross. As long as they keep some eye in preparation for the cross through the Georgia Pole Bridge, they should be able to grab this for pretty good and rescue with the control over at Everest with the fragging power as well. They can maybe grab this, but they need more firepower coming from all of them, still holding on to a good split for now.
RESQ, I'm really happy that they took charge of this Everest mountaintop. They have noticed and they've been aware teams are going to be rotating in from that east side, so they made that immediate rotation when that zone pointed to phase number 2 to be able to take up mantle over that position, to be able to also take up a potential for a couple of kills early on, before repositioning back under that Everest Hill ridge line and into Georgia Pole if need be as well. A team, though, that has already made it through the Everest danger is TSC Legends, another team in our side, our top 2, challenging RESQ for that top position, and they've got that strong position around Hospital, overlooking 777, and ready to maybe challenge RENGERS inside the hospital itself.
I'll tell you what, Highland Wolf, based on my knowledge of the map, right, which is hopefully good enough based on the amount that I know, these hardcovers around this area of the map is actually not as strong as people think. There's so many hills, so many dips that they can use, and will make a lot of these striking spots where they open fire a lot more surprising for the other teams. But now that they're relying on these compounds, make it a bit tricky. If the zone do shift against them, they will just be washed over by so many other teams.
Yeah, particularly the teams inside Georgia Pole itself. And even when we talk about Georgia Pole and its position here on the map, the bridge on that western side is going to be crucial for teams to be rotating across. And we know how easily in Erangel bridges can be camped, as Ki1 also lose even more in their position through towards 777. Unfortunately for them, might just be that first team out here. But as I talked about, this bridge here going to be around Georgia Pole, going to be the crucial maybe gate point for some of these teams to be holding, and for some of these teams to be picking up the kills that, like Most Wanted, these teams desperately need.
And Most Wanted got a decent game just now, right? So they're here to maybe try to grab a bit more. That second place was from Erangel in game 1, so they're here to maybe grab a few more points that they need. Now, sharing North Georgia with the side of HardShift, they will get an easy entrance in, but they will be needing to cross most likely. They can still kind of be on that coastline. It's not what you want, because when that circle get more and more congested, the rotation out of this northern part gets really, really predictable. So both them and the side of HardShift need to leave, but look at that circle. The teams actually protected it really, really well. The majority of them already found a spot in that circle.
And RESQ overlooking Everest as well will have the highest point over all of them. Grenades coming though from Ki1 as they look to try find revenge. This time going to slap it onto. They will have their compound sieged. 3 players for Ki1 as they take another onto Starboy, but Cable up on the top end. All he can do is watch as his team has now fallen. You see in the bot side still Simba just bleeding out. And the side of that wall. Cable will rotate through with his blue beep car and move it up to now towards the Everest Mountains, but it's going to be a tricky 1v4 because already controlling this is RESQ. Hello, say RESQ to Royal Knights and potentially just pick them out of the game.
Sons of Odin also need to show up in here. I think they went back to Pachinki once again, but that leaves me a little bit confused because, of course, they lost their IGL Insania early in this game, but that Pachinki position should be pretty good when it comes to claiming these spots, but a lot of teams just were able to out-rotate them and get a more center spot earlier than they did. And maybe a city like Pachinki, very close to circle like that, they need to not loot up completely and just go for a better location. Just quoting that point that I made earlier, right? Quoting what Zute said about timing your early rotation with regard to the playing path and your drop spot.
And it is going to be crucial to see how these teams rotate through if it does go for another hard shift. Do you rotate immediately and risk being caught out amongst the fire, or do you try hold off and hope for a good rotation later on after all of that gunfire has ceased? BeMyLOOT also making their climb on top of Everest as rescue, still the kings of the mountains for now. And I also wanted to keep in mind the side of HardShift rotation elsewhere on the map. They've rotated now, supposedly I would imagine, through that western bridge and have found a core position down to the southwestern end, potentially of this zone, going to be overlooking a strong positional finish for that team once again. So do have to keep them in mind moving later stages. But, of course, BeMyLOOT up against RESQ in front of us.
And with this position as well for BeMyLOOT, they know that this cover right around Everest is big enough to contain several teams, but they need to be aware of the teams rotating behind them. But doesn't matter, they need to find a way to get in now. It's going to be potentially a hospital finish with that dead center now going over to 777 Esports in that compound, but not as strong as people think, because the landscape around that compound leaves you a lot of vulnerabilities. And we can also see TES in a very good spot around those satellites, overlooking all that field, and they can maybe find a lot of kills on that southern side of the map. And that look at HardShift now needing to come through and got overtaken by Most Wanted, who are now trying to enter the circle from that western side just after the Uncles UK.
Yeah, it was, of course, now Uncle's Most Wanted making those rotations through the west side first and will be in position for those compounds. I think Most Wanted need to maybe rotate a little further down towards TES. It can maybe pick up those buildings at the edge, then scout further in from there, going downhill. But as you mentioned, it is the hospital potential finish. Either that or it will be the field's finish, depending on which way it goes. I think that teams in the north here, Tarzan, need to be very aware of the compounds they're holding and stay strong for now. But if you're on that south end, you do need to play a little bit faster, because going through these hills, the only way you can really do it is by snaking. We know how slow that will be with the zone so close on these guys' tails.
And the bigger problem of snaking as well, Highland Wolf, is not being able to take your car with you. And if we have an open field finish, you really need to rely on those cars. Meanwhile, Danny will find the last player of Royal Knights, actually just miss out on the opportunity, but they at least know that there's no more snaky snakes behind them.
Lakonostra MVP make their move back into now phase 4 as it's already on its way towards numero 5. Now we see TES positioning on the edge, looking to take down Vendetta, looking even most wanted on the edge as well. We talked about them picking those compounds up, picking the fields up down to the south, overlooking HardShift, who rotated the last out of all of them. Lotus almost goes down, but will survive for now. Tadazika will not be able to find that knock.
HardShift showing a little bit of hesitation in their rotations. I mean, they were on the northern side, they got the easiest access to North Georgia Hall. Then they got easy access based on their position onto the western side, but they were still a little bit slow in that rotation. So trying to be a little bit harsh, but I think it's also a valid point because we did comment yesterday saying that the ability, right, to very greatly capitalize what circle is given to them, and when you kind of have that position to maybe capitalize further with your position advantage, they need to be a little bit more proactive. And TES here trying to use this spot even further to farm more kills. Now out 3 kills already, the full team is still there for it.
HardShift, unfortunately, not so fun time for them. Unfortunately, 2-2 split, not working out either. That zone node towards now numero 5, as we mentioned, will go back over onto Everest, and RESQ looking to take control of this game and take control of this leaderboard, still ending now the second day. The BeMyLOOT Ki1 might have something to say about that on the south side, because the onus now shifts onto them to really be able to stop all these teams coming out of the fields, alongside even 777 to an extent.
And I think this is one of those circles, right, Highland Wolf, that teams really need to show, like, how they time their rotations. I mean, first of all, there's not a lot of spots in the circle. Even if you have the perfect knowledge to know what is the strongest step of the strongest rock, if you go in too early, you would just get shot from every angle. So I'm looking at Lakonostra MVP, seemingly close to the circle, but will not have an easy entrance. And the side of the uncles may prove us wrong, but TS still using this spot for as long as possible before they have to move, and will try to land some shots onto HardShift as they need to rotate further. Uncle is gone.
Uncles lose 2, but they're now just down to the final members. Most want will also put in more hurt to HardShift as they lose one of their final rotating members. Lakonostra MVP on that ridgeline, though, overlooking KO1 from their victory over Royal Knights as they try stop the rotation from TES, but they make it safely on top of the hill. The last one comes through as they also makes it home to freedom.
Lakonostra MVP at least found this ridgeline, and I think when they have this cover from that main side of the circle, they need to focus on clearing out what's behind. But we've got a compound breach right here. RENGERS trying to take this away from 777 Esports.
Malik, the only one alive, is 777. They did stop the rotations coming through. Malik's so low, only the sliver with teams behind him might just be backstabbed out of all odds of 777, maybe taking this knock. But they're looking carefully for the grenades bouncing off the wall. Won't find it for now. Malik's so low, but he's trying to do all he can. He runs back round from the other side of the building. But here comes 777 Tango to cut him off, and Malik will fall. RENGERS in 12th position.
And time to scout forward, no time for loot, sometimes not even time for them to be complacent, never the case. And 777 Esports on that edge now will get to find some spots in, and they can maybe crash some of these teams who are relying on certain compounds or even just car lines to protect themselves. And they are doing exactly that for now, and they will be rewarded for doing that work.
I am thankful, I think, for 777's position here of taking up this smart position on the north side. They've now only got a short sprint towards the zone. They've got a compound in their favor, and that can be more than can be said for the side of most wanted as they fall out of the game as well. Ads unable to make the rotation through outside of the blue zone. And even stronger, I think, still the RESQ, still inside the zone. They've got that high ground coming off of the Everest. They come down a hill, and they can actually overlook many of these teams, even use the ridge lines there with their 2-2 split over the forest, the trees even for some more protection. Their position going to look fairly strong, still moving into phase 6 here.
Very, very strong indeed, because they took Everest early. that proactiveness shall be rewarded, and with the circle going to them as well, they can come in finally, getting their card exposed with so basically full health still, full team up, a very tactical good 2-2 split with dips with a relative high ground, with skill as well. My god, this might be another strong one for them.
But this is where the 2-2 split comes in, because not only do they control the zone, they also have to now use the two members on the Everest side to stop BeMyLOOT aggressing on top of them. And they will all throw grenades at the same time, but none of them will land on to rescue. Now they have a bit of throwing themselves onto BeMyLOOT, and it will be down half health for one player. Tick will also find one onto Kindboy, and that will be the initial knock, as MVP will lose one to BeMyLOOT, but a real damage is in front of them. As you see, Kindboy's being knocked. Nemo and Clash G, the only ones in front. Tick trying to make that high ground position round, scouting over Nemo, maybe trying to find a pick with the grenade, chucks it in. Will it be finding his target? No, it won't, but with the guns, it will find Clash G, and now a second goes down, and BeMyLOOT only two remaining. Assault and make it just one. Nemo will be dropped as well. Firsted out of the game. Tick keeps himself alive, denies away the revive. RESQ holding up strong, and RESQ keeping strong as tape on top of teams here joining up on them. Even BeMyLOOT, Sultan still alive though, as Blood and Tick come over the top. They knock down Kindboy from the revive. Sultan will fall to the zone, and BeMyLOOT fall out of the game. 9 kills now to RESQ.
RESQ is so bloody good, man. What the hell? I was looking at the minimap there. Tick was the only one that was asked to look over and control BeMyLOOT. The rest of them, knowing that they're on edge, actually had themselves focusing on the rest of the circle. That is the experience and confidence shown by RESQ, and they made it to top 5 now with 9 kills. Really, really strong in here, like 4 players against 6 other players, split between 4 other teams.
And I think even the side, of course, now 777 need to make it alongside TES Team into zone. But I think it is going to be a little bit easier for the side of Wild moving in from this north side out of Hospital. Yes, it's a tricky position around this north side, but they are the furthest away from RESQ, the dangerous team here in these final phases. And RESQ, realistically here, they're going to be distracted by these teams coming in from the south, and that provide some opportunity, provide some freedom for Wild to move in, but Big Boss is pinned, albeit it has been spotted out. Instead, RESQ look for that solo on the north side, and it's not looking good for Big Boss at all as Phase 7 closes in to gobble them up.
Yeah, it's so hard as well for these teams. When in a tournament like this, every point matter, and sometimes you might rather give it to the blue rather than instead of giving it to the enemy team, because you don't want them to get any more points. I mean, RESQ, if you just give them more, they are just going to go out of control, and that is also TS still in this one after those 6 kills. It's a decent game for them finally tonight. We do bear in mind they got a very, very good finish after they won.
Her HardShift in 5th position, as Big Boss will join him in 4th. They will sit in their coffins as RESQ now pick up another on to double digits. 777 slowly making their way as a solo gunner gaming, trying to rival UV. They split though 2-2 on RESQ, taking 2-2 split on the rest of these 2-2 enemy teams. RESQ will find Gunner Gaming, eliminate now out 777. In the dissection of these remaining players in the lobby, as Ali also falls, the only snake now alive, up to 12, make it 13. The full squad gonna drive over for victory. In chicken dinner winners, RESQ dominate the top of the leaderboard.
They are just so strong, man. So strong. 13 kills and the chicken did 28. Quick maths, 112 points right now for RESQ. You know what? It's not just the fact that they've taken, it's the way that they've taken that into control. And you know what? Who the hell drives in the final circle like that? If you're not confident, you won't really do it. It's not even disrespectful. They're trying to drive and bait some more shots, get information knowing that they have the numbers advantage and the skill as well. This probably is the cleanest game I've seen so far. right, in this tournament, with the proactiveness of grabbing certain positions, not relying on the zone to give them stuff, and when they get the circle, just surgical and methodological removal of the rest of the lobby.
The phrase here really just being the dissection and the execution of all of those kills on Everest. They didn't even pick up the kills initially to begin with. And keep in mind, they've only just picked up their first chicken dinner. They did all of this in the start at the top of the leaderboard, Tarzan, without even picking up a win compared to the rest of these teams below them, who have all picked up 2 so far out of these games. RESQ, though, they've really opened now this leaderboard in favor of themselves. 777 TSC Legends take now that second and third position, respectively. And I am just looking even more so at that kill points and just gobsmacked at how ridiculous that number is after 8 games. We are looking, if we double that number going into the final 16 games, a total of over 120 kills potentially for RESQ.
It's just completely crazy. I mean, that is probably like RESQ going to represent our region. They just need to continue with this. I mean, with the experience, the run has been mad. They were doing better and better through the groups, and we saw that potentially happening through the scrims, and they are now in this finals fragging it like that. I'm actually happy, like to see this caliber of play, and this is the team that we need to represent our region. And you know what? Let's not forget about the rest of the teams, but we can see how it doesn't matter sometimes the fact that you get one chicken dinner. Like sometimes you just need to take it. If the goes to PUBG, give it to you. But how do you maintain consistent, man, when it doesn't seem to be on your on your side? The uncles now like one chicken dinner. I mean, it's not too bad, but they're at 11th place, and there's almost like just past like a third of the amount of points that RESQ has, and that is. And both having one chicken dinner, but you can see the difference there when it comes to consistent play.
And it comes all from these kills as well. Half of their point being from those kills and being able to split it evenly and showing that although they are this very aggressive team, that they can also just as easily pick up those kills from points as well, placing themselves in the end of those zones. Of course, 15 of them just going their way from that final match. But I think now going into the second half, there's still 8 games to go. And although they've got this strong lead now going into the second half of these matches of PMCO UK, I think it's still potential for many of these teams to come up strong, and still potential for many of these teams to take those top 3 spots. It's not over till it's over, Tarzan, of course, in this competition.
You know what? I have something to say when it comes to player development, right? Because we are developing as an esport. There's so many players playing this game globally who wants to be at the top. You know what? If I play some of these players from maybe RENGERS who are at the bottom right now against a player of RESQ, I'll place them in a 1v1, TDM something, they might be completely equal. So the separation of these teams are no longer. Okay, of course, there should be a little bit of difference, but that mechanics difference and gun control, recoil control, stuff like that is not going to matter as much. Like if you put something in front of them, they can take that kill. All of them can. Yeah. But why the difference? Where did it come from? How do you actually train? Stop associating your ego and like your confidence in maybe your gun control, and start looking into your PUBG IQ, your mentality control, your sports psychology, and how your professionalism in guarding your day and making yourself perform at your best. And this is what matters now. Stop thinking about the 1v1s you had against a particular pro player, because they are pro due to other things. And this is the time to train properly. And this is the start. And it is exciting.
It is exciting indeed. And it comes, as you say, down to those squads and how they play as a cohesive whole. But of course, that has been halfway through the PMCO UK Finals, sponsored, of course, as well by Xiaomi Innovation for Everyone. I have been Highland Wolf. You have been Professor Tarzan. This has been Highland Floof here as well, who have been holding strong through this final game, but he will wave us goodbye as we go through to the second half. Good night, guys, and have a good one.